It's the new perspective.
Perspective.
That perspective.
That's a shift in perspective you have.
Into the new perspective.
Welcome back to the new perspective. I wanted to have you on my podcast because you're a psychology student and you've just given me so many words of wisdom from all of our conversations, and I knew I just had to have you on. You're the perfect person, honestly.
It's so sweet of you.
Yeah, it's true, man. I'm so excited I'm getting to record with you.
I'm excited too. Let's do it.
Yeah, so what I want to start off by talking about is just what got you interested in psychology? We've talked about it briefly.
Yeah.
Didn't you say it sparked your interest when you were around 14?
Man, you got a good memory. Yeah. No, it was when I was 14, and I didn't have a lot going on at the time. I was just kind of playing video games. I was homeschooled my entire life, so I wasn't even going to school. Not a lot of that stuff. It was just, not a lot. And I just kind of found I was getting progressively more and more bored with existing.
Wow.
And I was just this is fun and all, but I guess. And so I just kind of started discovering little pockets of the internet that started talking about this new evolving thing that just started popping up at the time, that we now know is the self-help field, which is a whole other ball of yarn. But when I was discovering it, they were just breaking new ground with them all discovering stuff like dopamine and instant gratification.
Just being discovered?
I mean, it's been discovered for a long time, but it was discovered by randos, just purveyors of the internet who just didn't really know a whole lot about psychology or neuroscience or philosophy or anything like that. And these these people were preaching stuff like, hey, if you browse a lot on social media, it literally rots your brain. Here's the neuroscience. And little teenagers like me were like, what? Tell me more. And then that leads you down one rabbit hole or another, whether it's I feel like everyone who discovers that at some point goes down some yikes rabbit hole that leads them towards more of a better light of things. Some guys, it leads them down the MGTOW, hyper Jordan Peterson, self-improvement route, or there's toxic positivity that people fall into, and just all this other stuff, or this is the right way, guys, everyone else is wrong.
Yeah, you can see that a lot, definitely.
Yeah. And then it's just it's just kind of evolutionary, but it it starts somewhere, and I kind of started down the route of the first one I mentioned, where it was just self-improvement, be productive, rah.
Grind.
This is the right way to exist. Yeah.
Hustle. That's interesting though that you got into that so young, and you didn't just kind of overlook it and just actually dove into it.
Yeah. I mean, I didn't have much else going for me at the time, did I? I was just playing Pokemon Showdown in my room, man.
Right.
This is cool, I guess.
This is cool, I guess. Wow.
Playing Minecraft.
Just admirable. You were able to go down that journey. So how did that progress as you got older? Did anything just slip from you, or did you start making goals and
I don't know, it kind of came with whenever you're going down the rabbit hole of productivity and self-development and stuff like that, I feel like you almost inevitably come up to things like shame, right? And feeling like you're inadequate. And I just kind of had this really just this kind of baseline always kind of there feeling of both here's a good life philosophy, let's follow this is cool, and also a little bit of shame, I guess I'm not I'm not that good enough, I'm not doing all the stuff that I want to do, yada yada. And it was just kind of there for a good many years, just through constant ebbs and flows of being good and being bad at stuff, and just as I as I lived, and then as I got into, let me think, like, I don't know, the last like 3 or 4 years, I'd say, I really just was confronted with parts of life where just such black and white thinking wouldn't really cut it. And so I had to kind of expand that area of my understanding, which brought me to be like, huh, this is weird, and I'm not seeing quite as many people talk about this this area of understanding.
Like what
this whole
exactly? Just
psychology thing.
Overcoming duality.
It's really hard to explain, but it all really started whenever I found an online organization called Healthy Gamer, which was started by this Harvard psychiatrist, who, like, man, he is such a cool guy, man. Like, he was addicted to video games and like had a 2.0 GPA at like when he was 18 or 19 or 20 or whatever. Then he dropped out and he went to go study in India or something like that. And then he came back to America and like became a doctor and all this stuff. Like, he studied all kinds of yoga stuff. Damn. And he really kind of articulated stuff that I already kind of felt inside for the longest time, but never thought was like credible or valid. And he showed me a lot of like holistic viewpoints that are a lot more based in reality instead of like trying to find an explanation for the world, like a lot of the the pseudo psychology or the the motivational parts of the internet will try to do.
We talked about that, just like the pseudo intellectuals and just like not seeing reality for its truth, just like putting a bunch of making it too complicated and like not really learning from experience. Like, what do you feel like? How do you feel like it differed? What he taught you?
I feel like it differed in his way of he just had like such a yogic approach. Like he learned from his mentors when he went to India, and they taught him things that the Buddhists and the Ayurvedics talked about, or the Vedics talked about 4,000 to 5,000 years ago, and the Taoists and all those guys. Where it's like, and that's the kind of thing that brought me to existential psychology, where it's like we don't really like mind how you get there, man, but just like the goal here is attaining peace.
Right.
The goal here is like yourself, and it's not like how you get there, and it's not through frivolous things.
Yeah. See, that differs because like from the like self-development, like hustle grind mentality or intellectual mentalities, like steps, like you do this, then you have to do this, and you have to develop these habits, but that's a different approach to it completely.
Yeah. Oh yeah, I think I remember making this comparison once that like that there are people who are like, yeah, if you live like this, then you're wrong because you're chasing physical things, right? Like you're chasing monetary gain, or you're chasing like partnership or romance, or you're chasing this or that. But I'm up here. I'm intellectual, and I do all these cool philosophical things. But like if you look at it, both people are vying for the same sense of meaning in their lives. They're both in the same echelon, man. Like the dude who's sitting in his room watching anime all day, like buying anime figures and playing video games, and who society kind of deems as like kind of the loser trope, right? I don't want to like call anyone out because I don't fully believe that way. The old existential like dudes would see that guy as in the same kind of frivolous light as they would see someone who's really just trying to prove that they're better than everyone, that they're great, or prove that even to themselves.
Like, I remember you telling me this quote. It's like, everyone's drunk on something.
Yeah, no, I stole that from Attack on Titan, but it's so true. Like, in order for anyone to find meaning in life, everyone's drunk on something, whether it be like people who are addicted to a video game, or people who are addicted to alcohol or adultery, or people who just can't stop watching Al Pacino's motivational football speech at 2 a.m. because it makes them feel like they'll do better tomorrow. Or people who are like, yeah, I work 17 jobs, 27 hours a day. Like, I'm on the grind, or like I make these sweet gains, and everyone's drunk on something. That's how they make it through the day.
Yeah.
And I just really resonate with the existentialists who are like, maybe you don't need that.
Right. Like, that's a perspective shift right there. Like, because a lot of times people feel like, oh, I'm doing the right thing because I'm working a lot, doing all of this. But at the end of the day, it's like, it doesn't matter that much. It's just whatever you're drunk on. It's just whatever is getting you through life.
Yeah, and it's like that doesn't necessarily make it a wrong thing, and it doesn't necessarily make it a right thing.
Like, okay, can you explain like existentialism a bit more, because I don't feel like everybody's gonna necessarily know what that is.
Yeah, absolutely. So the thing with, like, I'll just put it in the perspective of like existential psychology as an orientation, right? So when most people hear about psychology, usually what they assume is like the Freudian like psychotherapy. Usually they think of cognitive behavioral therapy, where you'll take a person and they have like problem. Like, let's say, just for instance, they've got some bad depression, right? They've got some stuff going on up in their heads that really sad, right? Like a lot of depressive stuff. And they'll see that and they'll say, all right, let's analyze your brain. There's probably some stuff going on in there that we don't that you can't quite perceive. Let's bring that to the surface and let's tackle this problem. And existentialists, first of all, they don't really see things like depression or anxiety as an inherently bad or evil thing that we must annihilate, because they see the annihilation of like, say, your depression or your anxiety as an annihilation of yourself. And at that point, are you really helping yourself? Because from what I believe, that stuff is in your brain for a reason. And there's exceptions, right? Like, there are really bad like depressive disorders and anxiety disorders where it's like really unnatural. But by and large, I think that, like, especially depression, well, anxiety as well, are there for like a reason. Like, it's your brain and your body telling you something.
Yeah.
And to annihilate it is to try to like attack a symptom when there's like a problem underneath that's causing the symptom.
Like getting to the root of the problem.
Yeah, exactly. Like, a really great example that's really easy to understand is like someone who's depressed because their job just straight up sucks. And it's like, okay, well, maybe let's figure out your job. And then there's
not just give you a pill.
yeah, exactly. Oh my gosh, don't get me started. Here's the thing. Psychologists, that's another misconception. Psychologists are at war with psychiatrists. Psychologists are the brain guys. Psychiatrists are the guys who hear, oh, you're depressed, here's a drug. That's the difference. Okay. And psychologists are like, we're shaking our fists at the young psychiatry kids that won't get off our lawn, that are helping all big pharma and stuff like that. But yeah, like, I digress. Like, existentialists, we see that as like there's a reason for all this, and then our difference between us and, like, say, cognitive behavioral therapists or like behaviorist guys or something like that, is that it's so hard to explain. Keep in mind, I'm a student in this. Like, I'm not I don't do this by profession. But we see like just every little symptom of your existence as like the entirety of you, and we're like, let's figure out how that feels to like exist as this. And usually, and typically through that you can find more peace than you'd expect.
Yeah, I think something that's lacking is people aren't getting the root of the problem. They're just
Yeah.
numbing like whatever you're dealing with pills or drugs or doing this, but it's an indicator that something is out of alignment in your life. Like you said, like maybe it's just your job. You're not working a job that's aligning with you. Maybe you're
Yeah.
in an unhealthy relationship. Like these symptoms, these
Mm-hmm.
mental health issues are coming up to show you, yo, there's something off. There's something that you need to change, right?
Yeah.
And I just taking a pill or doing this, like not changing your life, like you're
Yeah.
it's
Yeah.
still
Yeah.
gonna be there, right? Like you're not getting
Yeah.
rid
You're
of
numbing
it.
the symptom. And
Yeah.
then like here's the other thing is that like that another big misconception about people who are like, oh, let's my psychology, like let's take care of my psychology and my brain and yada yada yada, is that there's no one prescription for any kind of situation. Because like let's say that someone is depressed because their job straight up sucks and they are told to take a pill about it, and then someone comes along and they're like, hey man, your problem is your job, let's fix that. But like my dude's a single dad with 3 kids and he can't afford to get another job. Like,
Yeah,
that might
yeah.
be a
It's
situation where
true.
you gotta take the pill till you can hold out for a while. And it's like every single human being's experience is completely subjective, and so is their like prescribed so are the better paths to helping them with their life.
Mm.
Just because you like say might be someone who's depressed and they have a really crappy job and they've got like 3 kids they got to take care of, or they got this or that, or they're like their friend always extorts them for money or like whatever. Someone else could have the exact same very complicated circumstances but have some different means of
Mm.
uh of improving their state of being.
Right. Yeah, it
And it's just all about figuring yourself
varies.
out. Yeah.
Right. Like there's some people that have like chemical imbalances or people like you said
True.
that can't necessarily get out of the situation, which is like yeah, there may be a good time and place for these medications, but a lot of the times it's just not
Yeah.
actually getting to the root of the problem.
Yeah, everyone is wildly different, man. Everyone is wildly
Yeah,
different.
like do you think you can really say everybody has the same exact anxiety or depression? Like everybody's
No.
struggling with the same
Oh,
thing, and so everybody should just take the same thing, you
don't get
know?
me started. Don't get me started on how mental illness isn't real.
Oh, I do want to get you started on that.
Yeah, so okay. Okay. So the thing with mental illness is that like I'm not trying to call anyone out and say you're not depressed.
Yeah.
All right? I'm not saying that. What I am saying is that I'm going to keep using depression as a solid example because it's very simple.
Okay.
It is like, depression is a term that we use to describe various symptoms and experiences within the brain. There isn't like a gland within the brain that molds into a certain way and then you are diagnosed to be depressed when that part of the brain becomes that. There are a ton of different things that factor into a like depression or not a diagnosis of like, hey, you're depressed because of these things. And then you could be either diagnosably or just even self-diagnosably depressed, and someone else is the same way but just for wildly different reasons. And they just all happen to you just both happen to have a lot of experiences that fall into the criteria list of depressed. And one exemption to this is schizophrenia is an actual medical abnormality within the brain, like physically. That's pretty consistent as far as I understand. But things like depression and anxiety are largely, there's just a lot more factors into it that make them like more experiential than medical, if that makes sense. And so like it's important to keep that in mind, because a lot of people will take like the word depression is like a death sentence, as if they were diagnosed with like scoliosis or something like that, right? Like they take a depression diagnosis as like a scoliosis diagnosis. Ooh. And like, oh, this is the thing that my body is.
Oh, yeah. I mean, it's not you. Like, you are not this. You are not your mental illness. You are not this. You shouldn't identify as this. This is just like state of being that you're currently like working through.
To some extent, yeah. But then it's like, keep in mind, to some extent you also are that. Like that's just kind of a part of your experience. That's just a part of like your existence is like, yeah, you've got this experience that happens to be very depressive.
Yeah, true. Yeah, it can definitely. It's interesting how much people can be like affected by it. Like this is like treating it as like some physical disorder or something really, really impactful.
And it's funny because I have a lot of personal experience with that, and that earlier this year I've never experienced any kind of real anxiety before. Like I've never been so nervous to the point of like my body can't move or anything like that.
Right.
But earlier this year I started developing some pretty intense anxiety to the point of where like I never had like a full-on anxiety attack, but I had little mini attacks where I was just kind of incapacitated for a short period of time. And what ended up happening was my heart started freaking out. And I don't mean it would freak out during little attacks. I mean like my heart was let me think how to put this. Whenever you go running and you stop and then you're like, man, my heart is beating so fast and I can feel it in my throat and like I feel it on my fingers and all that stuff. I imagine feeling that like just when you're sitting after like not doing anything and just kind of as a constant thing. That's how I kind of was. Not quite to that extreme extent, but that's a good way to explain how it felt. So like, I went to the doctor. I was like, hey, like what's going on here? Like this is painful. I started having heart palpitations and everything.
Fuck.
And so they hit me with, the pills. They were like, oh, your heart might be inflamed. Here's some heart inflammation begons. Here's some anxiety medications. And I took those and I started having like nerve issues in my fingers. And I couldn't like move my fingers as much because of the anxiety meds. And it was crazy because the only thing that stopped me from having that consistent all day anxiety, because even when my mental state was fine, it was like a physical anxiety that was manifesting physically in my body, just consistently. The only thing that helped was whenever I started like engaging with meditation, whenever I started really just thinking for long periods of time about old existential philosophies like Taoism and Buddhism, and I started practicing Tai Chi and Qigong as martial arts. I actually saw consistent drops in that discomfort.
Wow.
It was crazy. It was really weird. And the doctors were like, yeah, I don't see anything wrong with you. Your heart is actually freakishly okay. And I was like, okay, but like stuff's still messed up. I don't like, this is weird. They're like, it's just anxiety, I guess.
Wow. So
like, okay.
You were able to overcome that yourself through these practices. Like, what got you into meditation and like Tai Chi, like initially? Like, what inspired you to do that?
Well, I mean, I kind of explored meditation a little bit, even from when I was like 15. I was like, okay, let's see what this is all about. But like at a really light scale, right? Like the typical Western view of meditation, which is like, all right, just sit and close your eyes and breathe for a little bit.
Yeah.
And just kind of let your mind be clear, right? Like the step one of meditation, if you will. But then I was, I got to explore a little bit more because that Harvard psychologist or the Harvard psychiatrist at the Healthy Gamer organization, he demonstrates a lot of meditation techniques whenever he streams, which is really good.
Ooh.
But then at one point, he streams on Twitch, and at one point he hosted a lady who does Tai Chi. Like that's just her stream. She's a Tai Chi teacher.
Oh, that's cool.
And she just does it all the time. And I, watched her, and I'd never thought of Tai Chi before, like once in my life. And then I just got up and started joining her, and I was like, dang, this is really cool. I want to learn more. And so then I did. And then I learned that it has roots with Taoism. And I was like, I read a book on Taoism once. It seemed cool, but not that cool. When I read it, and it really was all that cool. And I just resonated with all of it. And it was just kind of a big, nice circular funnel of like, this feels correct.
Feels right. Huh.
Yeah.
What were your practices in Tai Chi? Like, what did you do? Like, what got you to that state?
Just very light. I just would watch YouTube videos and follow along with them, and then try to do them on my own. I didn't have any like formal stuff, or I didn't really grind out being good at it. I was just like, all right, let's just do these things, and then just kind of see what happens, and then good things happened.
Like, how do you think that it helped you? Like, I never tried it personally. Like, I practice meditation, but I haven't ever really dove into that realm.
Here's the thing, is that like the dudes that invented Tai Chi and meditation actually called Tai Chi meditation in motion, or moving meditation. It's just another form of it that just happens to involve your body. And it just, I don't know, man. It just helps, existentially speaking, to be able to just kind of exist, and you feel like there's both a purpose and not a purpose to whatever the heck you're doing. Just a lot of catharsis involved, a lot of like just being able to focus on something, but that isn't very taxing, and just feels nice.
Yeah, because you're just
I can't, yeah,
focused and present on what you're doing.
Yeah, I don't know. I don't know if I can explain exactly how it helped everything, but it just kind of did. Just gave me a place to escape to. Not to mention the benefits of just moving your body in all the different ways that it has you moving.
Yeah.
Effects with your heart and your bones and your joints and all that stuff. Gets all the movements you need out.
Yeah.
And I'm with the because meditation essentially started in both India and China. They both kind of had their own little sects of that. But whenever meditation got invented, there was this whole group of dudes called the Ayurvedics, and I'm what those guys would call high in vata, which means that I really like motion is a big thing for me. So meditation through motion is way more cathartic and healing for me than just kind of sitting and doing nothing.
Yeah.
But that is a whole ball of yarn.
That's different. Like, most people, when they think of meditation, it's just sitting down, have your like fingers together, like just
yeah. Yeah, the little okay hand.
Yeah. But there's so many different varieties, and a lot of people, it's hard for them to tap into that, but there's so many different ways of approaching meditation that like most align with you.
Yeah, if anyone's listening, or you in particular have like tried meditating, and you're like, man, I just can't seem to focus, or like, man, I like yada yada yada. I mean, first of all, I will say that if you're trying to meditate and clear your mind, if your mind is getting more intense, heads up, it's working. That's what's supposed to happen. But also, I recommend if you find your mind to be just a very wandering one at all times of the day, I recommend something called fire meditation, where you just kind of have a candle, and you just kind of have a dark room, and you just kind of sit, and you just kind of stare at the candle, and you let your mind do whatever the heck it will. Like, don't worry about controlling that guy. Just let him or her. I won't assume the gender of your brain. Just wander and do its thing, but just kind of keep your eyes on the fire, on the on the flame, and it's very interesting the way that it'll captivate and kind of bring your mind towards like a singularity, more than just kind of sitting there and closing your eyes would. And if you're worried about your eyes getting hurt, don't. Fire doesn't have UV properties of the sun, or it's not like electricity light where it'll hurt your eyes after looking at it. You could look at fire for like 5, 10, 15, maybe 20 minutes at a time, and it won't hurt your eyes to look at. Even if it kind of stings a little bit to look at, it's not going to cause any damage. You're fine. So I recommend that.
Yeah, it is nice. I've done meditations like that, and it is something about a candle. I have a candle right next to me, and just something about looking in the flame. It's put you in this meditative state. I agree.
Yeah, I theorize that it's something to do with how the fire's always doing something. Like, he's always dancing around, isn't he?
He's always
it's always just flickering, and there's always a new shape that it hasn't been in the last 10 minutes. It's always a different thing. And I think that really helps to captivate the brain in a really non-thinky kind of way. Like, you get to shut your brain off, but still notice how everywhere it is. And that just kind of helps with the ADHD parts of all of our brains.
Yes, and it's so nice once you start being able to do that and become a master of your own mind. You unlock this whole new reality, because we're so used to always thinking. We're always thinking 24/7. Once you're able to just be still, like you said, it helps you overcome a lot of that anxiety. Because with anxiety, we're always worried about something in the past or in the future, right? And so we don't think when we're in the present, there isn't anxiety, because there isn't a past, there isn't a future.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, if you're able to get to the what do they call it? I think they call it transcendental meditation, where you're able to just bring yourself to a place of being where you just kind of forget that past or present exist, or not past or present, past or future exist. You're just kind of existing, and that's everything. And it is possible. You can get there.
Yeah, that's the goal. I've went into some deep meditations. I don't know if I fully experienced that no time, no space, no one, nowhere feeling, but there's definitely potential for that, and I think it just comes with practice. But I've had some of the most spiritual experiences through meditation, where I felt like my body was sinking, the world was going up, I was floating. I don't know, it gets interesting.
Oh, I love that feeling.
Yeah, and you are able to reach that state in meditation more than anything else. You're able to fully feel present and connected to everything through meditation, more than most other things that I can think of.
Oh yeah, absolutely. I mean, it's the ultimate attempt to connect to the subconscious.
Yes.
There's nothing else that tries that.
100%. And if you are in this healing route, right? You healed yourself through this anxiety by doing these meditation practices and all of this, and what you were doing was rewiring your subconscious mind, and that's the whole goal of healing, right? Because you have all these programs that are basically your mental illness is just these programs that you're running. So when you're able to meditate and unlock that subconscious mind, then you're rewiring it, and you're able to actually implement the belief systems and change and overcome these anxiety, depression, or mental illnesses, or whatever you're struggling with, because you're unlocking that veil to your subconscious mind.
Yeah, totally. I mean, that's pretty well put, I'd say.
Yeah,
it's pretty close to reality.
Yes, it's so important. I would recommend people researching that. It's the power of your subconscious mind. But yeah, so do you want to, let's say if you were to help people, right? You said that you wanted to become a therapist, right?
Yeah.
So what would your approach be, right? Would you recommend meditation? Would you teach like existentialism, or would you teach like different philosophies?
Yeah, well, I think my approach would be like, in my mind, it would be existentialist in nature, where there's like the tinge of, I really don't care how you get there as long as you attain, like, hopefully attain some kind of peace or something like that, right? It would just kind of depend on the person, man. Like, it was like I was saying earlier, where everyone is just so wildly different, and so too are their paths. So if I got someone who seems really open to things like spirituality or things like different mindsets or perspectives or practices, then I'm like, let's do that. And if I got someone who's more about like something, they're like, yeah, I've got these issues, let's take a really logic based, like there's like a manual kind of approach to it, then I'm like, all right, let's do that. I really want to see myself as a kind of like set of tools, like a toolbox for people to be able to just kind of access.
I like that. So you just adapt depending on the person.
Yeah, I think that would be quite beneficial, because I feel like a lot of people have at least a friend who's been to a therapist and they're like, yeah, this person was just really stuck in the way that they thought, and they just tried to provide me with therapy or counseling in this way that I wasn't reactionary to, or I wasn't open to, and it just killed it for me, and now it's $300 down the drain. And I saw that and I was like, man, I don't want to be that at all. Like, let's change that. Let's be, at least let's add one therapist to the mix that isn't that.
I love that. Definitely. I don't really feel that current like therapists that are today, like when I was in therapy, it didn't help me. What helped me was kind of on your route, like just learning things on my own. Like I got into spirituality, psychology, philosophy, like meditation, and like stuff on my own. That's what helped me, not the therapist, not drugs, not,
Oh, I'm sorry to hear that. It's always rough whenever something like that doesn't help, because
I was great. It was great.
Well, I mean, yeah. Like, if it's for the greater good, then hell yeah. Like, fail all the therapy. Like, let all the therapy fail that needs to fail.
No, like it was
rocking, man.
Great, because I realized power that we have ourselves. Right?
Yes. Yeah. Absolutely.
Our mind is so powerful. Our habits are so powerful. Our subconscious is so powerful. We are able to completely change our lives and create the life that we want. We don't need to like external people. We have it. We have all the information that we need, like just at the touch of our fingertips, from a book, from the Google, from a podcast, from a YouTube video.
True.
Like you can learn so much just on your own.
True. Yeah, it's nice for me to think about being like the reason that people don't have to put in all the effort, because some people, they don't have the ability, like they don't have the time or energy in the day to like to find all that information. It's really hard to sift through all that stuff to find the needle in the haystack of what you actually need.
True.
And I think that should be the job of psychologists nowadays, is to not be the alternative for sifting through all that and like finding everything, like, oh, what works. Oh, now I'm like 6 years down the line and I don't even feel better for all the exploring that I've done. And I feel like psychologists should be more of a one-stop shop, but there are a lot that are doing a really good job nowadays. Like, there are a lot of good therapy and psychology work being done out there. I don't mean to like bash the industry or anything. There's like malpractice and like weirdness that goes on, but I think for the most part, like, there's a lot of good stuff being done.
Definitely. And we're doing that. Like, that's my intention. Like, I want to be that for people, right? Like, anyone can access a podcast. And
yeah, man, be a resource.
Yeah, that's what we're doing. From everyone that I interview.
My man, I appreciate it. It's good, noble work, I'd say.
Yeah, definitely. Okay, I wanted to talk to you about Taoism because you
Ah, yeah,
mentioned that and you said it connected to like meditation. And I think that that's just like a
yeah.
really interesting like philosophy, and I like to learn about it more.
Sure. So, I mean, I guess I can start with a really funny story of how Taoism was supposedly started. It started with this old Chinese tactician slash philosopher who was, I forget, was it the Tang Dynasty? I don't know. I'm probably really, really stupid, and some people are going to be screaming at me for that one. But it was really, really, really long ago China. And he was like an assistant to the regional manager. And the regional manager was like a guy, like a ruler in China. And he really wanted to like be better than the other Chinese rulers. And he was like trying to govern and like run the country a little bit, or the civilization or whatever. And this guy, the philosopher, who was his advisor, like he was the dude, was not being listened to. Like all of the stuff that he was saying was going in one ear and out the other.
Mm.
And he got fed up with it. He was like, yo, screw this. Y'all don't appreciate me. So he just ran off. He just left the city. He just left the government, the civilization, all of it. He just walked away into what we now know as the Wudang Mountains in China. And he walked up past the gate up to the entrance of the mountains, and then there was a guy who was kind of serving as the intersection between the city and the mountains, right? Like the city and everywhere else. He was the what do you call it? The bouncer, sort of ish, right, of the mountain. And he recognized the guy. Oh shoot, what was his name?
Oh, Google.
And he said, listen, I know who you are, and you're pretty smart. So I'll let you pass. Oh, it was Lao Tzu. It was Lao Tzu. That was the philosopher.
Oh, yes. Lao
Duh.
Tzu.
Why would I forget that? I'm so stupid. He was like, Lao Tzu, I know who you are. And you're really smart. And I'll let you pass. I get where you're at. But before you do, I need you to write a book prescribing how people ought to live. And Lao Tzu was like, fine. And so he did. I think it took him like an entire day. This is just how the legend goes. There's like debate as to whether or not this is actually how it went down. But then he wrote a book that was called the Tao Te Ching. And then he was like, all right, good book, go ahead. And then Lao Tzu went into the mountains and never returned.
Wow.
And essentially a lot of what the Tao Te Ching preaches about is this concept called the Tao, or the way, which is like, this is our, like, this I don't want to say like it's a prescription of like this is existence, but there's just kind of an explanation of existence that shakes hands with nature and our humanity and all this stuff in it. That talks about a concept called Wu Wei, which is essentially to say action through inaction, which is just a really old person way of saying it is how it is, man.
It is how it is.
Yeah, it is what it is, man.
It is what it is.
That's what Lao Tzu would have said if he had access to some Chinese marijuana or something. I'm sure of it.
Oh my. So, how is it connected to nature? Like, how did Taoism implement like nature into their philosophy?
Yeah, I mean, it's not hugely connected to nature literally. It uses a lot of symbolism of nature, and it also just kind of acknowledges the fact that we're also just animals. Like, we have our nature and we have the way that we're built to exist, and it's like, hey guys, maybe don't fight that a whole lot. It's kind of like how I think it falls in line with the way that I kind of view the idea of free will. Like, I have a complicated like belief when it comes to free will. I don't think that free will actually exists, but I think that to say that free will doesn't exist and then to live your life under that presumption is to kind of be dishonest to the fact that you're only human, and it's doing so is kind of in a way playing God. You know, it's just kind of like ignoring your own nature and like what you're built for. Like imagine if bumblebees were just like, man, like all of them just suddenly woke up and they're like, man, I'm just kind of told what to do by nature and I have no control over what I do. And then as a result, they just decided to hijack that and just stop. Could you imagine what wouldn't happen as a result? Flowers wouldn't happen.
Right.
Like we're forced to do things by nature. We're governed by nature for a reason, not for the sake of being governed by nature, but for a reason.
Yeah.
You know, we have, to some extent, humans have to believe that free will exists. Otherwise, we'll self-actualize into nothing.
Shit.
To some extent, because they start delving into nihilism and everything like that.
Oh, so if we don't believe that we have free will and we're just like, okay, well then I just won't do anything with my life, like humanity wouldn't have progressed so far. Like what would the earth be like right now? Like what would life be like right now?
Yeah. And like it's perfectly fine to not believe in free will, but it's another thing to live your life in rebellion of the idea that free will doesn't exist, and the idea that like every little thought that you have is governed by nature's combination of nature and nurture, and that's it, right? Like there's no supernatural like other higher consciousness that you have like in your soul that's separate from your body and your mind. Like, you know, you can fully believe that doesn't exist, but you know, it's just another thing to like rebel against that and say like, oh, you know, therefore nothing matters and I'm not real.
Yeah, that goes into like,
and then like, yeah, and then act accordingly, because and I believe that it's kind of a way of just trying to gain some control over the fact that you're kind of insecure with the idea that you have no control over your own self. You're
trying to control your life by saying that you have no control.
Yeah, it's funny because like you'll find that people who say like, yeah, free will doesn't exist and I have no like control over the way I am will in turn try to take control over that.
Oh fuck.
You know what I mean? When it's like you're only human, man. You can't perceive any more like non-free will than you experience. I'm getting into really what's the word I'm looking for? Vague territory here. Like,
yeah,
where you start talking in circles and like start saying things that other people probably won't hear in the same way that I'm saying that.
Yeah. Oh, I mean, we can be more specific about it. So, do you feel like you don't think free will exists because it's just or belief systems or programs or like ways of living that we would just like adapt from the people around us, our culture, our school system, etc.? Like it's not really what we've chosen, it's just what's been presented to us in our current reality.
I think that free will exists to the fullest extent that our universe that we can perceive can manifest it in. Like I don't think there's any sort of free will that is higher than what humans experience. You know what I mean? And I think that's something that's respectable, and I think that's something that we should kind of embrace, I suppose.
So humans have like the most free will compared to like any animals or like whatever. Like tree can't say I want to like walk over to the water or something. Like we are able to do that, so we have more free will than
really the most primary difference between us and animals is that we can perceive our own we can self-reflect. And that's culminated in a part of the brain that psychologists call the default mode network, where it's like your ability to self-perceive and kind of contemplate the future and your own death. Like other animals, they really can't imagine the fact that they're going to die, but we can. And the interesting thing is that increased activity within the default mode network of the brain is pretty much directly correlated with depression. And that's why usually like people with depression are usually like smarter than the rest of us, because they like people who are highly depressed usually are like, yeah, we're all gonna die and it really sucks.
But
like
they've
that kind of
accepted that.
bites.
They've acknowledged what most people are afraid to acknowledge.
To some extent, but like on the other hand, like the Buddha acknowledged that he was gonna die, but he was a pretty happy dude, wasn't he?
Yeah, isn't that kind of the difference between like nihilism and like the existentialism? I'm not too sure.
You're kind of right there. Yeah. It's a very vague line, but yeah, you're pretty on the money there. But the whole thing is that like with the default mode network specifically is that like if a deer say looks for food in like a big set of trees and they look through like 20 trees and it takes all day and then they don't find any food, they don't sit there and be like, man, why can't I find any berries? I must suck, huh? But if a dude asks out 7 girls and they all say no, he's gonna be thinking there's something wrong with him. And that is the default mode network right there. That is our ability to self-reflect and self-perceive and be able to be like, all right, what's wrong with me that could improve whatever? And that's why humans experience depression on a very large scale, very intensely.
So this can be a positive thing or a negative thing. Like it can be positive for reflection, it can be negative because it's like able to reflect and think.
Yeah, because think about it, it's evolutionary. Like like I was saying earlier, like every negative thing you experience is there for a reason. And like the ability to self-reflect to the extent that it harms you, the harming is a motivational factor of the brain that tells you to like, hey, maybe change this. like I'm like before you wouldn't just get depressed. It was like, okay, something's wrong with me, let's like adapt in this way. That's how humans are so adaptable, because our brains like make us adapt, otherwise we die. Because like think about it in terms of anxiety. Like if you were an old human being in the way back times, and you like there was like you were in a place where there was some like mean jungle predators, like you're like there was jaguars running around, there was like rhinoceroses, I don't know, and there was a nearby couple human tribes that really liked like killing your guys and like eating them, maybe, I don't know. Who do you think is more likely to survive? Someone without a heightened sense of awareness, i.e. anxiety, or someone who does? Probably someone who's more cautious and like constantly aware, right? Whose eyes are always wide and looking for danger. And so that's an evolutionary thing, part of our brains that's like conditioned us to live. And the thing is that the human brain also does something very special, which is like it only allows things to evolve only to the survival extent. So like it'll let a part of the brain evolve, like say the anxiety part, to where it'll let you survive, and that's kind of it. It's like, all right, let's not refine this, we're good, like we're living. that's about it. That's just kind of Charles Darwin at work there. And so then all the brain is like is it's like, all right, so if I perceive something that is kind of a danger to me, then I react in this way, anxiety. Or like and for instance in my example of myself, like physical manifestations of like the heart and increased just general anxiety symptoms, stuff like that.
It's a survival
that
mechanism.
Translates very strangely in modernity, when we're suddenly, after millions of years, I don't know, I'm not a history guy, I don't know, but at least several hundreds of thousands of years, we've been running from jaguars, and that was our anxiety trigger, to now, oh my gosh, is Billy gonna accept my invitation to the prom? That's our anxiety trigger now. But the brain recognizes that as the anxiety trigger, so it manifests it in the same way as if you were running from a jaguar. That's a really crude way to put it, but as if you're anxious about a jaguar. Yeah,
that's it. We're living in survival. Like when you're tapping into these emotions, you're living in survival, but we have advanced collectively as a society that we don't need these emotions anymore. We don't need to be in a constant state of anxiety because we aren't living in survival. Like we have our homes, you know, we're not fearful of being killed by jaguars anymore. Like, so we don't need this anxiety. We don't need to feel this because of
though
all of that.
some people do. Like, imagine
Yeah.
being a very high crime rate city.
Yeah.
And then some people really don't. And we didn't, like, that's the kind of part of the brain that takes a good couple million years to evolve out of. But this change in society happened over the course of a couple hundred. Like maybe 1,000 or 2. You know what I mean? So we're just kind of left with these remnants of parts of the brain that are very primal, that don't really understand this whole iPhone thing.
Yeah, our minds are not up to speed with the advancements of society. Like, we aren't there yet, do you feel?
I mean, yeah. Like, I mean, you know, to some extent we are, because we're very easy to mold our brains. Like, just, you know, you can see that when, like, 3-year-olds are better at manipulating iPads than any, like, you know, 50-year-old in your neighborhood. Like, and we're very adaptable. And it's not like we're just sitting here at the mercy of the survival instincts that we were bred with for thousands and thousands of years. We're not helpless to that. But it's just, you know, it's just a nice thing to keep in mind. It's a nice thing in that, like, you can remember, like, oh, it makes sense that I feel this way. Thank goodness, right? And it kind of gives you an ability to, like, take a breath and say, man, okay, now I understand the full nature of why I feel this way. Now I kind of can devise a means of tackling it. Stuff like that.
That's beautiful. Because you need to understand your mind in order to tackle it. Like, when you understand why you're feeling this way, why, and how it's just instinctual, it's like survival mode, you are able to reapproach it and actually, like, tackle it, like you said.
Yeah, I don't think a lot of people really understand the full beauty of the first rule of Alcoholics Anonymous, which is admit that you have a problem. Like anything in your life, the only way that you can begin to approach it is by completely understanding it to its fullest extent, even the parts that you don't want to look at. You know what I mean? Like, maybe you're depressed because of your job, because your job straight up sucks fat eggs. But there's also a little hint of it in there that's like, yeah, maybe you're a little bit lazy and you don't want to, like, do these things. And, like, is that a fault on your part? Sure. Does that mean that you're inherently bad for it? Probably not. Like, you got to take in all these little subtle things before you can really approach something and say that you're competently doing so.
Because you can't suppress it, right? You can't just drink your problems away, numb your mind, or just take pills to forget about it.
Yeah, I mean, you can, but, you know, just maybe don't ask why you're feeling so bad about it later.
Yeah, exactly. If you truly want to grow, you have to have the self-reflection. You have to actually understand the root of the problem, understand your mind, like start understanding your subconscious mind, start understanding way and why you're feeling this way, understanding that it's like survival emotions that you're tapping into, you know, it's for evolutionary reasons, and just starting to understand this set you up on the right path for healing and growing.
And, you know, with all that, everything is so subjective, man. Like for me, I was at a point not too long ago where I was like, yep, I am ingesting probably a somewhat excessive amount of alcohol in order to cope with my feelings. And I was like, I understand that it's bad for me. I understand yada 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 yada. But I'm just gonna kind of accept that this is where I feel like I need to be to process things. And could this send me down a really bad spiral? Sure, maybe. Like, you know, we'll see. I'll try not to. But, you know, everyone needs something different. Everyone needs a different approach, and everyone needs to really,
drunk
like,
on something.
True. Sometimes it's alcohol. Guilty.
Sometimes it's alcohol.
Yeah.
I feel like you've overcome that.
Yeah, a little bit. I mean, I still say to myself that I'm going to use things as coping mechanisms, even though they're, I guess, kind of unhealthy. Like, I still use social media, like browsing, scrolling, as a coping mechanism. If I'm ever like really, really stressed, then I'll recognize the fact that my brain is like, hey, buddy, you should like scroll Twitter instead of doing this thing that you should be doing. And like, you know, sometimes I'll observe that and say like, all right, nope. And then sometimes I'll like actively go and like use it as a comfort, because, you know, while I know it's bad and I know that, you know, I should use other things for comfort, I also will sit there and respect the fact that, you know, I'm kind of an emotional state of turmoil at the moment, and you know what? Like, let's respect that turmoil with a little bit of comfort. You know, like I feel like I need a little bit of comfort. And I, you know, just I think that it's kind of in the same vein of existentialism, where it's like, I don't really care how you get there, man, just as long as you attain peace. Yeah. And then you gotta observe the part that's like, you gotta be careful that you're not just indulging in whatever you want to and calling it peace. You know, you gotta be really careful about how your brain wants to trick you, because my brain does that as well, all the time.
I mean, when you're doing that, social media can be a tricky place. It's just immediately showing you this person, look at their life, look what they're doing, look at how happy they are. This person, this belief, this thing, oh, look at this bad thing that happened, this, yada, yada, yada. Media can be a negative place, and I wouldn't recommend it as a form of coping. And you've recognized it, right? Like, you're aware of it, and you know, you can always find means of doing that. But I don't know, I'd be careful of that.
Oh yeah, no, absolutely. And it's a thin sheet of ice that I skate knowingly. Yeah. And it's just kind of where I'm at sometimes, you know?
Right. And it's like you just said, admitting there's something that you need to work on is the first step. Just being awareness is always the first step.
Yeah, becoming absolutely.
Oh. Yeah, I think
awareness is a universal good.
Ooh. Awareness isn't fucking powerful.
It's true. Yeah.
Fucking powerful. That's why meditation is fucking powerful, because more awareness you are, like, more success you will have. Because the more you have an awareness and you show up to every situation that you have with an awareness, you will be at an advanced state. You will be like ahead of the game compared to other people, because present. Like, who's going to get more out of a situation, a podcast, a learning, anything that they're trying to elevate themselves on? Who's going to get more out of that? The person who's not aware, not emotionally aligned, or the person who is aware, emotionally aligned? If you're able to master your awareness, master your emotions, become a master of your mind, you're able to just have more success in whatever you do.
Yeah, I mean, you know, to a good extent, yeah.
Yeah, that's why meditation is just like so.
Yeah, and that's why I'll say it. That's why cognitive behavioral therapy has, you know, found a good amount of success. Because cognitive behavioral therapy is all about awareness. Like, that is their thing, man. Like, they're like,
really?
Oh yeah, no, that is like, it's like, hey man, whenever you feel angry, let's delve into that. And it's funny because a lot of CBT guys, they'll say like, if you're angry, then you like, usually underneath it is fear, and if you feel a lot of fear, usually underneath it is like anger. It's a lot about like experiencing like your body and your mind and stuff like that. It's what you would call an experiential therapy. And it's funny because existentialism is also, I believe, an experiential therapy. So they're not so far apart. They're currently, the two ideologies or orientations are kind of at war within the psychological community, but they're also not too different in terms of the fact that they're both kind of experiential therapies. It's pretty funny.
So they're pretty similar and pretty different.
Yeah.
What ways are they like different, I guess?
Ways are they different? Just kind of their philosophy. I'd say CBT is more of the kind of orientation that's like, okay, let's like annihilate things. Let's fix these things. And existentialists are just kind of like, let's sit with things. Like I know my current psychology teacher is an existentialist. And he said one of the a really big difference between a CBT therapist and an existential therapist is that someone will come in really depressed, and then the CBT therapist will say, all right, let's tackle this issue. Let's, yada, yada, yada. And then someone with a similar situation will come into an existential therapist. Like say they're grieving, right? Like say we got someone who's grieving going into both people. And they're like really upset. The existentialist will, instead of saying, let's process this, they'll just kind of sit there and cry with the guy for like 40 minutes. And they'll say like, yeah, that's like beautiful. Like let's sit with this. Like what's it like to be experiencing this? Like what are you feeling about this? Like let's just sit with it for a bit. Because this is existence, is what we're doing right here.
Oh.
There's no like premier way to exist. There's no like, this is bad, let's annihilate it, let's fix it. It's just like, all right, let's do this whole existing thing.
Let's do this whole existing thing. Like this is.
Yeah. And you want to know a good way that that those two different orientations are similar? Apparently the number one predictor of whether therapy actually works, like just fundamentally helps an individual, isn't the methodology. It isn't the actual practices used. It's by a pretty large margin the relationship that's established between the therapist and the client.
Oh, fuck.
The quality of the relationship is one of the most predominant factors in whether the therapy actually works or not. When you're talking about psychotherapy, that is.
Oh, wow. I didn't know that.
Yep, it's pretty crazy. Because, like, largely the methodology or an orientation that you use in therapy isn't very consequential. It's largely an aesthetic choice, whether you choose to be an existentialist or a humanist or like medically based or behaviorism based or based in cognitive behavioral therapy. They all work. Like therapy just works. It's a really good story about this is Freud, right? He was like the first psychologist, and he like had people face away from him, and he was like, so what did you feel about that? And then they would like talk for 40 minutes, and he would say, interesting, what do you think about that? And they would talk for another 40 minutes, and that was psychotherapy. That was how he worked. And there was this guy in America who was driving around the Appalachian area, like just providing that same therapy. He was using Freud's pretty much handbook, pretty much guide to psychotherapy. And he's just bringing this service to multiple people. And then he just kind of realized that, like, hey, so Freud's ideas are kind of based on nothing. He just kind of started doing stuff, and I guess it kind of worked. But it's not really based in laws or science or whatever. So what if I create my own, just entirely own psychoanalysis fundamental basis orientation, right? Like practices and just like ways of going about it that are just based in the same kind of fundamental nothingness. Like, just what was the term they used? Just kind of, it's castles in the sky. It's really grandiose buildings and ideas that are just kind of based in not much ground. And I'll just do that with some people and do Freud's thing with some other people and just see what happens. And what he found is equal success in both. Because it was both therapy, just different belief systems and philosophies that he was approaching it with. And then he found the same success. And it's crazy because just psychotherapy just works. I think it's like 80 or 85% of people who seek out and obtain psychotherapy, get better. And I believe therapy is by a large margin the best thing you can spend your money on in terms of happiness per dollar. Like scientifically speaking, mathematically speaking, it is the best thing that you can spend your money on in terms of obtaining happiness per dollar that you spend.
I can agree with that.
That was quite a rant to go on, but I think it's important.
It's interesting to see that there's not just one specific way, you have to do this or you have to do that, or this is the right way, this is the wrong way. It can be different for each individual, and I think a lot of it is just the intention. If you have the intention to get better, if you're I actually want to change, I'm paying this person because I actually want to change that much.
Yeah, but by the way, just to put that out, just put this out there, I have alcohol in my system at the moment. It's the only way you're gonna get a nice constant stream of consciousness from me. Sarah made me do it.
No, don't say that.
She forced me. No, she said, please, I'm begging you, get drunk. It'll be funny. No, it's a lie. I told her that I'm more existential and like thinky and easier to talk about this stuff whenever I'm drunk. So I said, hey, it'd be pretty funny if you just I'm not drunk. I'll put that out there. I'm not drunk, but I just have a good amount of alcohol in my system. High tolerance.
That's true. He is more existential and more thinky.
Yeah, I have let me think. Okay. About a third of a bottle of wine and two bottles of beer in as of tonight so far. To just give you some idea of where I'm at. I'm not. Don't be me, guys, please.
You're not
better
leading by
than
good
me.
example here.
Nah, listen, I'm leading by the example of live your best life, girl.
Yes, live it
That's
out.
the example. Yeah, dude. In my my English class this past week, my English teacher, who's a really good journalist, talked about how weird it was discovering the benefits of dark stout beer, like the physical health benefits. And let me tell you, I did not need that kind of encouragement to continue drinking Guinness.
What are the benefits?
Did not. Just various liver benefits, heart benefits, which is great because I got those heart issues. I don't have heart issues, but heart weirdness. Bone, apparently it helps your bones to some extent. And obviously, don't drink in excess. Jiminy Christmas, man, don't drink in excess. Yeah, do what you want, but not to your detriment. All right, that's the moral of the story here. Because you know what, I am fully functional. It is finals week, and I am thriving. Okay, I am thriving.
Oh my gosh. Yeah, I wanted to talk to you about this though. Your research paper on meditation. I want to hear about it. What have you
Oh my
learned?
gosh. So I'm still at the tail end of doing it. But let me tell you, my dude, there is a peer-reviewed journal. It's released by a guy named Frederick Travis is who it's released by. It's in the journal Medicina 2020. It's called on the neurobiology of meditation. And it really goes in depth on meditation, obviously neurobiology with it. And it has a really interesting finding in that they took, how many practices was that? It was multiple. It was at least 8 or 10 different kinds of meditation, like multiple different varieties of it. And they separated them into like, they took a bunch of them and then separated them into 3 groups of 2 different meditation techniques. And what they found is that engaging in these meditation techniques activated the brain in similar ways, but engaged with completely different parts of the brain. Does that make any sense, or do I need to explain that further?
I think you need to explain it just a bit further. Like, what 2 parts?
Yeah. Okay. So basically think of like, we've got 3 funnels and then we've got water. Okay? Meditation is the water. You put the water through the funnels, like these 3 very different kinds of funnels. Like one of them's a straight down funnel, one of them does like little swirlies, and one of them is like a crazy straw. Okay? Meditation as an overarching practice activates the brain in the same way. The water still flows like water do. Gravity pulls it down, all right? Meditation still activates the brain in the same way. Different meditation practices, i.e. the different funnels, bring the meditation or the water through different parts of the brain to activate it in different ways. Ooh. So they found that like doing different, like say doing, I don't know the terminology. I haven't committed the paper to memory. But doing like say one kind of meditation, like more of an experiential meditation, will light up parts of the brain that are associated with, certain emotional responses. But doing a more cognizant kind of meditation will light up completely different parts of the brain. Maybe some don't even have to deal with emotion. Maybe some have to do with memory processing or like frontal lobe work. But they all just light up different parts of the brain. And it's so fascinating. I wish that you had like a visual part of your podcast, because I actually have an image here that shows the different parts of the brain.
This will be on YouTube as well. So.
Oh really? Do you want me to send you the image I'm looking at right now?
See it. Yeah.
Yeah, I'll snip this image. It just shows the different parts of the brain that light up. And it's just crazy because like it's just weird, man. None of these areas connect. It's such complete opposite ends of the brain that light up as a result of just subtly different parts of meditation. It's crazy, man.
Did you send it to me?
I sent it in DMs.
Okay. Oh. Okay. So this blue area. So, that's interesting. I never realized that they would like activate like different parts.
Yep. The one on the top, the blue one, is focused attention meditation. Then the yellow one is open monitoring meditation, and so on and so forth. And they kind of show which little sections of the brain they light up. But anyways, like the moral of the story here is that, like, man, meditation is such a dynamic, underexplored thing. It's just crazy.
What are the different like meditations? Like for the first one, how did the first meditation differ to like all of the other ones? Like what?
Oh, dude, you think I've done that much reading yet? No,
not yet.
What? No. But I will say that like you can experience these different things yourself. Okay, and I'll tell you how. There are. Let me think. Like I just say, engage with one meditation one day. Engage with just sitting in a nice comfortable pose, closing your eyes and letting your mind wander. Right? Just let it wander and see if you can get your mind to shut off. Don't get frustrated if you can't, because if it can't, then that's still the point of the meditation. But just just let it exist. Then the next day, do the fire meditation that I talked about. Just stare at a fire and let your mind wander. See how different your brain focuses and like how quickly it focuses. See what it focuses on. Then on another day, oh shoot, what was the other main kind of meditation?
Tai Chi, yoga.
Yes. No. I mean, yeah, absolutely. Have another day where you do yoga. Go for it. But another day, have a day where you are meditating in a way that is very sensory based. So like really zone completely in on feeling the air on your fingers. Zone in on the subtle things that you hear through your ears and the things that you smell. Really focus on that. And through those different practices, you'll probably find some differences in perception of, like, I don't know, reality, if you want to get really existential about it. Like, I don't know, it just changes the way that you process everything. Or, you know, just do one of those for an entire week and then do another one for the next week. And then, you know, so on and so forth. Just see how differently you operate. You can absolutely experiment with all this stuff and just see for yourself, you know?
Right.
It's really cool stuff. Meditation is not this big, massive, monolithic, like, you must sit for an hour and obtain enlightenment by sitting and clearing your mind, blah, blah, blah. Yeah. It's not what the Western, like, idealization of meditation is. It's just like a thing. It's like breathing or walking or playing a video game. It's just kind of a thing that you can just kind of do. It's like journaling or reading a book or, you know, whatever people do to try to feel productive.
Yeah.
Just do it, man. Hashtag just do it. Shia LaBeouf. Shia LaBeouf encourages you to stare at a fire for 15 minutes straight.
Oh my gosh. Like, there's so many different forms of meditation, and you know when you get into like a passion, right? Like you have a passion, like maybe that's making music or writing, whatever. You get into this flow state where you're only thinking about that. Your mind's not anywhere else. You're just completely absorbed in that. And like that is a form of meditation. So
I agree. You're absolutely correct. 1000%. Yes.
Yeah. And I think most people have experienced that to some degree. Like, so you've already meditated. You've already like gotten into that zone.
Yeah, if you could sit there and say, yeah, I've experienced the flow state, you, my friend, have been in a full state of I'd almost say transcendental meditation, where you're just like, nothing exists but this. But even if you haven't, and you're just like, yeah, I've been kind of engrossed in a thing to some extent, then like, yeah, you've meditated.
Yeah. You're getting there.
You know, if you just kind of sit there and turn your phone off for like 15 minutes and just lie in bed and stare at the ceiling, and you've meditated. You know, maybe not to the fullest extent, but like, you've done it, and like, you know, you can do it again. And if I'll tell you what, if you just sit there and you don't have to make a conscious effort to do it better or anything ridiculous like that, like just keep doing it, and your experience of doing it and the results will actually just kind of improve as you do it in the same way.
Yes, I can 100% agree with that. Like
with any skill, get your 10,000 hours in, buddy.
Yeah,
you'll improve.
And you can get into a meditative state a lot quicker. So I meditate like every morning, and
I wish I was that good at it. I was that diligent.
It's harder to meditate in the morning because like you're in sleepy brain, like visualizing, let me dream.
You're in sleepy brain.
So it can be harder to focus, but it's really nice to not start your day being like, I need to do this later, I need to do that later, I need to do this. Because the first 30 minutes after you wake up and the first 30 minutes before you go to sleep, this is when your mind is most susceptible to programming. So
yes.
It's really important that you like implement good practices during these times, right? Like affirmations, meditations, whatever it can be. And when you can get into a meditative state a lot quicker now, just because of the practice. Because I've done it, made it a habit. No.
Right. Yeah, it becomes easier to just hit the button.
Yes.
Dang. Yeah, that's very impressive. I certainly need to get on that as well. You know, it's interesting that I got reminded of something when you mentioned the first and last 30 minutes of you know, before and after you wake up. Is I've noticed recently that the first 5 minutes after I first wake up, like you just come into consciousness, right? Like you're hardly even awake. Like it's really weird, but during that 5 minute period, that I feel as if my brain is more active then than it is at any point in the day. And that's not to say that my brain is inactive during the day. That's to say that I feel as if my brain is completely overloading during those first 5 minutes that I'm awake. It's really weird, and I feel like I should really experiment with it more, research it more. I don't know. Maybe it's an anxiety thing.
What do you mean exactly? Do you feel like there's a bunch of stuff you're just thinking about the future or things you need to do?
No, it just feels like my brain is going at 1,000,000 miles an hour. Like I am processing
Really?
things at a rate that fully conscious me has no idea of whenever I first wake up. It is just overwhelming. It's really weird, and it sometimes I manage to go back to sleep because I don't know, it just feels like I just am running 8,000,000 miles an hour, and during the day my brain is just at 1,000,000 miles an hour. You know what I mean?
How so? Like, what are you thinking about? Like, what is this state?
Oh man, it depends on the phase of the moon, dude. Like it could be like the future, or it could be some dream, or it could be something really ridiculous and stupid, right? It could be like a video game, or it could be like, man, why am I continuing to be alive? Or like it's really thinking really hard about philosophies, or like intricate details about my schoolwork, like, oh, I should do this, I should do this, I should do this, how does this work, like, I should get details on that, I should get on this at this point in the day, like at this exact time, yada 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 yada, what do I have today, da, 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 da.
Yeah.
Like I'm making it's you know what I'm talking about? It's really crazy.
Why I implement meditation, because
I feel like I should do the same.
The way you start your day is it sets you up for the rest of your day. Like I've gotten into the habit of doing this, but when I went on a vacation, I wasn't necessarily able to do my full practice, right? My full morning routine. And I was a bitch.
Really? It just set you off, huh?
So it set me off because, and I realized how important the way you start your morning is, because
interesting,
you're programming your mind and you're telling your mind who you are and how the rest of the day is gonna go. Like it's subconscious, right? It's that subconscious programming, and it's so important because, like, you know, you're kind of in that state all day, right? When you like start immediately thinking about all of that stuff, it's like, Jesus.
When you're almost like, go ahead.
I was gonna say this, when you're sleeping, you're just like, you're not thinking about anything, you're relaxed, you're sleeping, you're dreaming. Then you wake up, it's like, boom, do this, do that, boom. Like, jeez, relax. You know?
Yeah, I mean, well, I will say that whenever you're sleeping, what your brain's actually doing is processing things.
True, that's absolutely true.
Crazy.
That's very true.
Yeah.
How does your mind do that? Because I'm not fully like aware of exactly how that works.
Yeah, well, so basically think of it like this. Like, whenever you're conscious, whenever you're awake, all of the different parts of your brain are like, imagine it's like a board meeting. And they're all talking. They're all like, the amygdala is like, hey, so I'm afraid and angry because of these things. And the frontal lobe is like, all right, let's culminate all these things and like put this out into the world, because otherwise we'll be seen as some kind of animal. And then you've got, you know, the memory part of your brains that's like, hey, I remember this thing, like yada yada yada. You know, all these different little facets of your brain are communicating. And whenever you go to sleep, what happens is the frontal lobe completely shuts off, and then all of the other parts of the brain kind of turn around in their little boardroom chairs and just start kind of fiddling with like their own little like they just start typing on their own computers. You know what I'm saying? And they all start doing their own thing. So like the memory guys or the memory part of the brain is doing his own thing, and then we've got the amygdala doing its own thing. And a lot of times what happens is that we can experience that in the form of dreams, which is why dreams don't make any sense. Like you'll be experiencing fear by looking at a caterpillar because your amygdala is lighting up because something scary happened early in the day and it's processing that. but also at the same time your memory is processing a caterpillar that you saw earlier in the day. And then the visual part of your brain is processing kind of both of those things, and so it presents that to you in the form of a dream. And then as you're sleeping, you experience, I think there's like 4 states of sleeping, and there's like rapid eye movement sleep, which is where you're not visualizing anything, and then there's like the dream part of sleep where you're dreaming. And then what a lot of people don't know is that there's one of the phases of sleep is where you're actually awake. You're actually like past the threshold of consciousness. Whenever you have a healthy night's sleep, right? Like you feel rested, you've actually attained consciousness about 3 or 4 times that night, but you don't like remember it, and you didn't really wake up and start doing stuff. Yeah, like you wake up a good few amount of times in the night.
How? Like what?
And that's just kind of your brain going through this big I don't know how to describe it, just kind of like a wave graph. Like it goes down, then it goes up, then it goes down, then it goes up. And just think about it, whenever it gets really up, sometimes the very pinnacle of that state of consciousness passes the point of from unconscious to actually conscious. And then you wake up. And then you go right back to sleep.
Oh, do your eyes open? Do you like...
Oh, no. You don't get that awake. Sometimes you do, if that state of consciousness happens for a longer period of time, like 5 minutes, because normally the passing the threshold state of consciousness that I'm talking about right now lasts for a few seconds, or like 30 seconds or something. Not enough for you to be able to really perceive it.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. And so it's just this weird, like, wavy kind of flow that your brain just goes through in order to properly process all this information and get your brain. It just does its thing.
Yeah, like
it's really weird.
That's why you are actually able to like learn and fully digest the information that you took in from the day from like sleeping. Doesn't it help
that's
you?
That's why people say if you're learning something, work on it right before you go to sleep, because your brain immediately goes into process mode. So then a lot of times people will...
That's...
Yeah, people will be doing something like right before they go to bed, and they will wake up better than when they went to sleep at that thing.
Oh, fuck.
Because your brain goes into hyper processing mode.
Interesting. And it's also the first 30 minutes before you go to sleep. So you're working from your subconscious.
Yeah. Well, it could even be the first 2 hours before you go to sleep. I don't know. Like, it kind of depends on the person, I guess. But yeah.
See, there's so much about the mind. So many incredible things that your mind is just doing. Like how magical.
Oh, yeah, man. People think space is the final frontier. No, the brain is the final frontier. It's great.
Yeah, it's really interesting learning about your mind, and just because when you're able to do this, you are actually able to understand yourself on such a fully deeper level, and you're able to like heal and grow and like elevate yourself on such more of a deeper level, and you're able to understand everybody more, because you don't really understand yourself when you think about it. Like there's so much going on that you just don't even know.
Yeah, exactly. It's important to take that perspective and just keep it in mind as you exist. You know, don't let it dominate you, but you know, just keep it in mind.
I wanted to talk about like you said that you were a black belt in like martial arts.
Yeah, when I was
we haven't even touched on that.
Yeah.
Like I'm really interested to learn about it.
Yeah, I mean, there's not a whole lot to talk about. I was one of the kids that was put through Taekwondo at a young age, and I got a black belt at the age of 16, and I kind of...
That's impressive.
Thank you. I kind of fell out of it in my late teens, and I've just kind of come back to it recently, where I began teaching it. And like I recommend martial arts to anyone, and just any kind of martial art, because there's martial arts where it's like karate or taekwondo or Muay Thai or whatever, or MMA or kickboxing, jiu-jitsu, and then there's stuff like, not a lot of people, I think, at first glance consider Tai Chi a martial art, but it's a martial art. It is an art of movement of the body. People think
yeah,
they hear martial arts and they're like, oh, that's like where you learn how to kick people and like hurt them. And no, martial arts just means just kind of a practice of the movement of the body in a really controlled manner.
What? So did you take it for like self-defense, or like was it just something that you wanted to take?
It was just a really cool thing. I was like, yo, I like Karate Kid. Like, let's go. Like, yeah, but it was really interesting because it it taught me a lot. It gave me a lot of nice logistical skills, like balance. Like I have a really good balance now, and I have really good control over my strength and stuff like that. But it was a really nice transition into learning and understanding Tai Chi and Qigong, which is like, in China there was the three big martial arts. There's Tai Chi, Qigong, and Kung Fu, and they're all kind of connected, and they're just kind of like a nice trifecta. But Qigong is probably my favorite over Tai Chi. I know more of Qigong than Tai Chi. And it's like, imagine if like Tai Chi had like it was like sectioned off between moves. It was just like a format. That's kind of like what Qigong is.
Like, what would you do in Qigong? Like, what are you?
I think I've demonstrated you Qigong before. It's
just
kind of like, yeah. You were asking about it, and I was like, I could just show you. And you're like, yeah, sure. Qigong is like, Qigong is like Tai Chi, but it's not like. I'll be honest. It's pretty much a lot like Tai Chi. It's just a lot more like strength based than fluidity movement based, I guess. And it's kind of sectioned off by like dividers of what'd you call it? Like you could like say at a 16-step Qigong form, you would like do the little divider, which is like bringing your arms up and bringing them down, then do movement number 1 4 times. Then you end it with the same thing, arms up, arms down. Then you do number 2, and then you close it. Like that's a very bare bones description of Qigong.
See, I've heard a lot of people that like I really look up to, and they talk about stuff like this, like Qigong and like meditations and like yoga, and it's interesting to see like the other benefits of it. Like, is it like strength? Does it help you like mentally? And like,
oh yeah, I mean, first of all, I recommend if anyone is interested in like, oh man, Qigong seems cool, like Tai Chi seems cool, yoga seems cool, I recommend just looking, like, don't feel embarrassed about it. Just Google or YouTube beginner Qigong moves and just do it. Just follow along. It's not like some grand like big deal. Just there's no like right way. Just do it. Just watch someone do it and follow along.
Just do it.
Yeah. Oh shoot, what was I gonna say? But I mean, yeah, like there's one Qigong video that I watched where a dude is really strength based, and he does a lot of stuff with like the core and the fists and everything. There's a Qigong practice that I used to do that I don't do anymore, but I probably will once finals week is over.
Maybe that'll help you out during final.
Maybe. But every other day I would go out to my garage where there's this big wooden beam, a really thick wooden pole, just in the middle of the garage, and I would just hit various parts of my body against it as a means of like I'd hit my palm, I would hit my elbow, my shoulder, my legs, my ribs against this wooden pole. And
what?
Yeah, like, so monks would do that, and it would like, it's kind of like how, if you play guitar a lot, you build calluses on your body, right?
Yeah.
It's just like raw, just like hit your body to make tiny little microfractures in your bones to make them stronger, and it's like just hit your body to make it stronger. And it's like there's practices like that within Qigong. There was, oh my gosh, I really want to do this one day. There's a practice called Iron Body Qigong, which that's part of Iron Body Qigong. But there's another part where in Iron Body Qigong, you set a timer for like 5 minutes ish, and then you have a group of like 3 or 4 people just sit there and punch your body for 5 minutes straight, and
This
you just
is not
tank
what I
it.
expected
You just
Qigong to
you
be.
just straight up tank it, dude. You just like
What?
someone's like rapid fire, like just on your ribs, and one guy's like got he's got like your arm. It's really great, and the monks do it, man. All of the monks do it. It's great. It's my favorite, dude. They're just so metal, man.
What?
It's like, yeah, we just straight up tank that shit.
What
So
the fuck?
good.
This is not what I expected.
Do yourself a
Qigong.
favor. Look up qigong monks, like I don't know, like month-long qigong practice, or like day in the life of a Shaolin warrior monk or whatever in
Okay.
China. Those videos, I guarantee you, will have iron body qigong where the monks just wail on each other for 5 minutes.
What is this achieving? What is this helping you?
Strengthening of the body, strengthening of the mind, man.
Yeah.
Strength of the body, strength of the mind. It reinforces all of that. It's great, man. I am so behind all of it.
That is like the last thing I expected you to tell me.
And I would just like sit, like I started doing it because I didn't even register. Like my garage had a big wooden beam, so I would just like go outside and I would like take a jog, and I would just walk up to a tree and I would just start hitting it with my shoulder, and I wake up sore the next day, and it was like, yep, that's iron body qigong. And then I would do it like 2 days later, and then I'd wake up less sore the next day, and I would do it again. I would wake up less sore the next day, and it was great. And I'm sad that I fell out of it, but like, you know, sometimes school just be stressful and it takes over your life.
Fuck. That's okay.
But yeah, qigong is more than just fancy moves with your hands, man. It is a borderline philosophy. It really
Wow.
is. Qigong overlaps strongly with Taoism.
Does it? Like,
Yeah,
how
yeah.
so?
I don't know. They were just invented around the same time, in it. They just kind of have the same philosophies of like, this is existence and we embrace it.
Like embracing your pain, like not shying away from it, just like fully accepting it and like going into it, like
Definitely. Yeah, like don't be afraid of the whole existence thing that you're doing.
the whole existence thing.
Yeah.
Yeah. See, that's powerful right there. Like,
Mhm.
accepting reality and accepting things for what they are.
Yeah, and in that you find 5,000 years ago were the first existentialists right there.
It's cool learning about all of these like intellectuals that like kind of had a good grasp on reality even so fucking long ago.
Yeah. And I think the greatest thing is to recognize just how much like you and me they were, because Let's was just a guy who was like, yo, like, screw you guys. Like, this is stupid. Like, y'all just keep fighting. I'm going to the mountains. Like, this sucks. You know?
Yeah.
And like he just kind of had ideals, you know? He just kind of had ideas. And he was like, I mean, I guess this is just kind of how it works. Hey guys, this is how it works. And
that's it.
he just happened to be another dude who had the kind of time in the day to think about all that stuff.
Mm-hmm.
You know,
Yeah,
that was
that's
the case with a lot of those
important.
old guys. Yeah.
Like just taking time to fully like contemplate things. A lot of the times we don't get to do that because we're like, oh, I need to do this later, I need to do this later. But
Yep, you're so right.
and even through meditation, when you're doing that, like people are able to like get like the insight on their life because they're taking the time to just stop and like fully contemplate things and reflection.
Yeah.
You're able to come to more of a understanding of reality like these philosophers did.
Yeah, exactly. Like that's an important reason why I think that, you know, ancient philosophers and guys like Lao Tzu and Socrates and whatever were, you know, they're respectable sources from which to kind of derive ideals from, because they had the kind of time. They had the kind of time and energy and motivation to do all this thinking. And it's also to keep in mind the fact that you were born with, you know, pretty much the same brain as these guys. These guys weren't special just because they're older, and you're not special just because you're newer. Like, we all kind of take in information in roughly the same way, and no one's like super special in that way. We're like, you're the same as, not, you know, the same, but you're pretty much the same as Lao Tzu, and that you're human. You have the same capacity to come up with the same things and internalize the same things and do the same things. So it's not like you're disadvantaged because you just because you weren't born in the 6th century,
right?
You know, and he's not any better than you just because he was.
You have the same potential. You are powerful. You shouldn't compare people or put them on a pedestal just because of you've learned over time, or this or this label or that. It's like, you have the same brain. You are born to the same planet. You're under the same moon, the same sun, on the same ground. And when you fully realize your potential and you realize the power that you have and the power that your mind has, you are able to know all these things on your own.
Yeah, the difference between you and Lao Tzu is that you have access to Google.
Fuck yeah, you like, yeah.
And is that for better or for worse? I don't know. You decide. Like, that's up to you, my dude. Are you gonna use it for good, or are you gonna use it for Instagram scrolling? Dun dun dun.
Think about that. You have the access to all of the information in the world known to humanity right at your fucking fingertips 24 hours of the fucking day. Mm-hmm. And you're spending your time scrolling on social media mindlessly, just feeding your mind with all this negativity. You can learn anything. You can learn anything that you absolutely want. Like, you can buy a book for $5, whatever, and learn the same shit that you do in like college, university. Like.
Indeed. That is a fat indeed, my friend.
Mm-hmm.
That's crazy. It's
Remember
crazy,
your
man.
Power.
What a strange world we live in.
Oh my god, that's
we have every single translated writing of, you know, every kind of Buddha, because, you know, there wasn't just the Buddha, there was multiple Buddhas.
Was there?
There was the Buddha. I forget what his name was, but there was the original Buddha, who is like a prince or a king or something. Oh, he's a prince. But then there was like the Buddha. It wasn't his name. He had a name, but then the Buddha is just the title given to someone who achieved enlightenment in such a way that he did. And there was a good few of them. But anyways, like, there was, you know, you have all the translations of like the Buddhists, the Buddha guys, and the Buddhists, and Lao Tzu, and all the ancient Chinese philosophers, and all the philosophers of Greece and Western Europe, and all that stuff. Just ready for you.
It's right here. You have the power to learn whatever you want. You have the power to become a master of yourself and become the grand designer of your reality. It's right here in front of you. You have all the tools needed right here in order for you to achieve anything that you want in this life. It's right here, right in front of you.
And in the spirit of existentialism, if what you need to experience pure bliss and happiness is to watch Keyboard Cat for the 50th time, then please, for the love of God, do it.
Yes.
I'm begging you to watch Capybaras vibing to Neo Wave for an hour straight for the 5th time instead of researching Lao Tzu. If that's what it takes for you to live your best life, then do it, damn it.
Yeah.
I'm begging you.
We're all gonna die anyways.
Dude, I'm not gonna lie. You starting this podcast has got me inspired. I've been considering starting a podcast that's just called, I thought about it too. I wanted to start one called Some Rando in a Car, where I just talk while I'm commuting to school every other day.
I like it.
Because I drive every other day when I go to school. It's like a 40-minute drive. So I'm like, how hilarious would it be for just a constant stream of consciousness of me just talking about stupid stuff?
Well, maybe in the future that'll be a potential reality. We shall see.
Maybe we'll see.
Yeah, so I think that's a good place to kind of wrap things up.
Yeah, totally. Let me think if there's any like last things I want to say. I don't really.
Anything you want to plug? Any like social medias or whatever?
Oh my gosh, I could not be less present on social media. I'm gonna be so honest with you. I post on Facebook once every 5 years. I post on Instagram once every 2. My Twitter is just liking really funny videos about Bionicles. Jeez, man. Like if you're a poet, I really like writing poetry.
Yeah.
Follow me on Poetizer. My name Carson Hill. I don't know. That's about it. I'm not really out in the whole public sphere at the moment. You know, if you encounter me, you encounter me. If you ever, let's see, if anyone ever wants to get into contact with me and just literally talk about any of this, I am super down. Or if anyone wants to understand anything more, if anyone wants to say like, hey, I feel this about this way you said. Let me think. My Twitter is @slugbug, SLUGBUGFGC. So put the letters FGC at the end of that. Just hit me up on Twitter, dude.
Yeah.
Go for it.
Same
Go
with
the
me.
heck for it.
And with me, if you guys want to like reach out to me, my TikTok is like _new perspective, and my
Dang, you got a whole TikTok for this, huh?
Yeah, I have a TikTok. Have you not seen my TikTok?
No, I don't have a TikTok. I've never downloaded TikTok in my life.
Wow.
It's the one sin that I won't commit.
I like that. That's probably why you are the way you are. Yeah, so Slug, or I shouldn't call you Slug. I'm so used to calling you Slug.
Yeah, you call me Slug. Call me my nickname.
Sluggy.
My username online is Slugbug, guys. But my real name is Carson.
Yes,
that's
that
me.
is
Like Carson Daly. I used to say like call me Carson, but that didn't age well.
Okay.
So I just say Carson Daly again.
Yes. Well, thank you so much for coming on and sharing your perspective.
Thank you. I enjoy saying words for a long period of time.
That's what podcasts are.
Yeah. Thank you for listening, guys. I love you all. Go live your best life.
Alright, guys. Well, thank you for listening and tuning in. That is the new perspective.
Alright, that's the new perspective.